Welcome back to our discussion about the Western Balkan Summit this week, and now with a focus on the three countries which can hopefully join still in this decade, but they are not still in NATO. This is Bosnia, Serbia and Kosovo. They are very interconnected, and I will outline this in this video, what really should be done to solve and settle the issues, the structural issues, the major political issues which impede, unfortunately, still their membership in NATO. And this is basically also a condition for why they cannot join EU so fast. Yeah? And then again, let me reiterate, three NATO members, Montenegro, Albania, Macedonia, they shall join very fast if they additionally fulfill the condition of joining the euro, adopting the euro, and also accepting a status of membership minus in that aspect. You have seen it maybe in the last video. But the three more complicated and challenging countries, Bosnia, Serbia, and Kosovo, very deeply interconnected, obviously, in their all recent history from the start of the demonstrations against Milosevic and Milosevic's own demonstrations in the year 89 in Kosovo, to then the violence in Bosnia and the war, the civil war, or the Serbian aggression ultimately. It was very much connected with Kosovo again. That's why Kosovo was so careful under Rugova, because they saw these immense atrocities and level of violence which was happening in Bosnia. Obviously, all of them were in one Yugoslavia before. They all knew the actors, they knew the situation, they watched each other's television, they knew very much what was going on, and it was part of the same conflict, of the same political and later military confrontation, aggression of Serbian nationalistic mentality in that under Milosevic, in that form of Yugoslavia which he led. It was very terrible. Terrible for Bosnia, terrible for Kosovo. These are the two main victims of that terrible decade of the 90s. And it is, of course, that their destiny is very much united and intertwined in many ways. Yeah. So what is now exactly to be done to disentangle this everything? We are no longer in the 90s. There's now peace in the Balkans. Everybody wants to join the European Union. So what is for the EU to do in order to disentangle this kind of triangular situation between these three countries? The EU recently, under very much what I call, it's not very nice to say, but it's a kind of appeasement-driven policy, and it's also a little bit attracted by the glittery Belgrade and the personality of Serbian leaders. This is obviously very much a part of the recent strategy, very much focused on Belgrade. Belgrade as the key to the region, Belgrade as allied to Russia, and always having this kind of Tito-esque possibility to play like Tito always did it, being in the socialist world, grandstanding globally, playing off the West and the East, while still benefiting financially from the West. This is what Yugoslavia has done. And in another video I have already outlined, it's not Tito has invented it. It's basically very much deeply rooted in this kind of intrinsic arrogance of Central European, ex-Austrian Hungary kind of style of thinking, that we are somehow very good and the rest of the world has to come to us. The Serbs are very much part of that. Orban is very much, and also unfortunately the Austrian leaders with their neutrality myth and all this kind of self-exaggerated kind of mentality that the world has to come to Central Europe because we are the center of the world, because of whatever kind of myths of Byzantine power or whatever. It might be going back very, very long time. Apostolic emperors, I don't know. I don't want to go into this kind of philosophy debate. But what is happening is that we sadly have this kind of tradition playing off everybody. And Serbia is the master. And Mr. Vucic is really a very magnetic personality. He has this intellectual power and the personal magnetism. And, European leaders come to Belgrade. They see it's a wonderful big city with imperial glamour and great personalities, and then they go to Sarajevo, and then they go to Pristina and see, the situation is far from that. And so that's a bit of a problem, and it leads, of course, to a certain bias towards Serbia. But it's very wrong to have it. and appeasement is very wrong, absolutely, because it encourages exactly the wrong behavior. So we have then called Serbia the front runner. It's of course connected also with economic interest, because Serbia is of course the biggest market still with 7 million people, and Bosnia is half of it, and then Kosovo has just 1.8, and so it's a lot of very fragile small states, and then there's Serbia, a big player. So it's naturally that there is a little bit of dynamism there. And then there is also the interest. So we did this policy, we called Serbia a front runner, but obviously it's not. All three are not in the WTO, and that's actually a condition to join the EU, official one, not one I say like NATO or the Euro. That's my proposals, and I think they are very justified, but the WTO, really, you cannot join the EU without that, and all three are not in. So that's the first thing, to make a process for all three countries to join together so that nobody can block each other. You know, it must be a joint WTO accession process, and a fast one. In the next 2 years, all three countries to join the WTO and then unite it. Not that Russia or China or whatever derails any process, but all three countries united into WTO in the year 2022. Parallel to that, it's very important to award the NATO invitation and to invite Bosnia to NATO. 2-1, the relation is there of the ones who want anyhow in NATO, the political leadership. The Serbian Republic, a name I really don't like very much, because you shouldn't call a republic Serbian in a sense in modern times, but it was done like this. It's Republika Srpska, and so the situation is like this. And obviously it's a complicated situation when one important part, even when it's a minority, rejects the membership of NATO. So what is to be done? The West heavily to invest. I have a separate proposal for that one. It's called Highways for Peace. So buying stakes of the state-owned highway operators, 49% via the EIB, and invest heavily in both of the highway operators, because there are two, one for the Federation, one for the Republika Srpska, and massively invest in a kind of a public works program with building all the highways, which the Bosnian leadership wants very much. They want to connect to Zagreb, to Europe, to Serbia very much. They have a lot of infrastructure need, and they have no money. So basically the European Union has these funds, has these instruments, but in that way really buy into the highway operators and buy into these public companies and massively build in the next 5 years, and make very clear that the future is Europe, connect also with Europe, and obviously encourage the transformation from the Bosnian mark. Surprisingly, Bosnia, the last place where there is the German mark, more or less. It was in that way not done like in Kosovo and Montenegro to transform from the mark to the euro after the wars, but in Bosnia somehow they lacked the courage or whatever. There was a conflict in between, and it was not done, sadly, and now it's time to do it. And then also open the European labor market more to the Bosnians. And the Bosnian Serbs will as well understand the highway program, will understand the euro, will understand the opening of the labor market in Austria especially. The German one already more open. Great, actually, very congratulations to the German authorities for that. So it's very important now to do these three measures and to invite Bosnia to NATO, and this will also signal that to the authorities in Serbia and to the Serbian public how the situation is, and then basically make a dialogue. Now there is already a dialogue, but add this additional element of NATO membership of Serbia and of Kosovo, and make it very clear that Kosovo will join anyhow, even if Serbia doesn't want. Yeah? This is very important because we have to be honest to the Serbian public and to the Serbian elite that this is now happening in Bosnia and Kosovo, and invite them to join. Obviously, if they don't want, and currently the majority of the public, misled by its political elites, many of them also with a past in the Yugoslavian regime, they have said no. good, okay. If they don't want, yeah, then Bosnia in 2022 with a new American president, hopefully, will join, but also with the present one it's possible. He has already integrated Montenegro and Macedonia. So let's see what is the reality in the elections, that we obviously don't know. And then to make sure that there is the invitation 2021, the membership 2022 for Bosnia, and also the clarity for Kosovo. Anyhow, both of them are already our responsibility to secure. So both of them into NATO, and the invitation to Serbia as well, if it chooses to join. But then basically everything is already much clearer on the institutional front. And based on the NATO membership, then obviously parallel to that also the offer to encourage the Serbs to adopt the euro. That is of course for 2024 as well. And if they don't want, good, they don't have to, it's a voluntary thing. But to encourage that in Bosnia, Kosovo has already, Serbia to encourage. And then once these two conditions are met, and then obviously to say, now you're both in NATO, now it's time for the peace treaty and mutual recognition. And then basically based on that peace treaty, then the possibility and the very clear prospect of all three countries to join in the next mandate from 24 to 29. That's why I always say EU37 2029, these three countries to join the EU then in the next mandate together, so that nobody can block each other and do some kind of Piran Bay like Slovenia, Croatia and all this nonsense. There's many issues open on anyhow, which for decades will keep us busy, but therefore we have the EU to to regulate such conflicts. But these three countries then to join, again, the best, on the 1st of May 2029 to be together. And if you're of course lucky, I will advocate for that in a different video, that Ukraine, Moldova and Georgia use this opportunity as well and to piggyback on this triple enlargement and to have basically what I call the completing of the European project, at least I think for this century, and that these additional 9 countries join the European Union as well as political project, fully politically integrated. Of course, on this membership minus basis, meaning that they can be suspended their voting right in case of non-compliance with the regulatory or the financial necessary regulation and due diligence of spending European taxpayers' money in their transformation and integration. But that would be mainly only for the political elites to be a little bit, subdued in their sadly very open arrogance and open, not really good competence. Yeah? So ultimately that would be the model for the membership of the more complicated three countries in one group, with also the Moldovans and Ukrainians and Georgians, which also bring the specific set of structural problems with them, mostly Russian-induced with the occupation of these territories, and I have already made the video about Ukraine for that one. So basically that's the mechanism, a joint triple WTO progress, and then also the consequent way towards Euro adoption and NATO adoption, leading then to EU membership in 2029 for these three countries. Thanks a lot.